From July 24th to 29th, I had one of the most amazing professional experiences of my entire life at the Leadership Institute for Academic Librarians at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education. And I kept a journal of sorts in the form of live streams and posts that I shared with the Kind Leadership Challenge community. Today, I'll be revisiting those recordings to share what I learned and how you can implement those lessons in your own leadership practice as well. Welcome to the Kind Leadership Challenge, where I empower educational and library leaders like you to build a better world. I'm Sarah Clark, founder of the Kind Leadership Guild. My PhD in higher ed leadership, my experience coaching, consulting, and presenting to library leaders all over the world, and a career working in academic libraries from the front desk to the dean's office taught me that leaders can effectively, humanely, and collaboratively transform their organizations without burning out. And now I'm sharing those same lessons with you. Here's the deal. You give me the next few minutes of your day. In return, I'll share short stories and simple challenges designed to heal yourself and your school or library so you can get back to making the impact you wish to see in your communities. By embarking on each week's challenge on your own or in our private Facebook community, you and your team will begin growing humanely, managing effectively, and partnering collaboratively, and your school or library will build a more informed and educated world along the way. How can you successfully navigate challenging conversations so that you can transform your team culture and acquire the resources you need to thrive? Mastering Challenging Conversations is a free guide to applying the principles of kind leadership to planning, conducting, and moving forward from any challenging leadership conversation. Just go to kindleadershipchallenge.com/conversations, enter your email, and start having the conversations that will impact your community for the better. Oh, and you'll be entered in a free drawing, which I'll share at the end of the episode. Greetings, kind leaders. I am sitting in a hotel room in Boston, Massachusetts, just off of Harvard Square, and I am about to head out to my first full day of the Leadership Institute for Academic Librarians, lovingly called LILE, here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And while honoring our agreement as an institute to keep all discussions inside the institute confidential, over the next few days, I am going to record and share my thoughts, my experiences, and my lessons learned in this podcast diary of sorts. So come along as I share my time this week at the Harvard Leadership Institute for Academic Librarians. Our first session that first day was led by Joan Gallos, co-author with Lee Bowman of Reframing Academic Leadership. That book itself is a follow-on book from Bowman and Terrence Deal's Reframing Organizations, which has been a classic in the field of leadership studies and has informed both my professional practice and my work here at the Kind Leadership Guild. But that doesn't mean I didn't learn a lot that first day. Greetings, kind leaders. Sarah here, reporting from the Cambridge Common in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Today we have been going through, or in my case, reviewing the 4 frames of organizational leadership. I have a lot of familiarity with the 4 frames. I actually taught them in a library leadership course I taught at OU School of Library and Information Studies back about 5 years ago. I'd actually reviewed them and taken the little assessment that you take at the first of it about 5 years ago, about the time I started leading at my current university. And I took it again today. And it was interesting how I had changed. For those who are familiar, there are 4 frames in the model: structural, human resources, political, and symbolic. And I've always been very strong in symbolic. 5 years ago, when I first took the test, my second highest score was in structural, which is not uncommon amongst librarians. I took it again today. We all took it as kind of our part of our session today. And I discovered that in the past 5 years, my scores had shifted. My strongest score is still symbolic. I have a feeling that will always be true. Anybody who runs a podcast called the Kind Leadership Challenge probably has a lot of symbolic visionary traits in their leadership practice. But my second most strong trait is now human resources, which was kind of fair to middling 5 years ago. And I think a lot of that is the journey that I took as a leader in the last 5 years in my first dean role, all the things I learned that, well, eventually led me to start this podcast. So as I kind of show you the view here at Cambridge, Massachusetts on the Common, as I've had to walk back through the drizzle to go to our afternoon session, I would leave you with a thought. How has your leadership perspective and how has your leadership practice changed in the last 2 years? Are areas that you thought were weaknesses for you now become strengths? Are there areas that were strengths that maybe you've taken for granted that you need to amp up a little bit more? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I will probably be back again throughout the week with my thoughts. So, reporting from the Cambridge Common in beautiful Cambridge, Massachusetts, stay kind now.
The next day, we stepped away from theory a little bit and shifted more towards practice, with a session led by the amazing Alexia Hudson Ward. We talked a lot about the intersection of authentic leadership and the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, well, I'll let myself from 2 weeks ago share my insights.
Greetings, kind leaders. Back at the Cambridge Common, standing in front of the obligatory massive memorial and statue to Abe Lincoln and the Civil War dead from the Cambridge area. Yesterday's session on the 4 frames of organizational leadership was followed up today by an amazing session on vulnerability in leadership and how that ties into DEI issues with the equally amazing Alexia Hudson Ward. This has been a great few days. And I want to share a session we had this morning, or a part of her session. We all wrote down on Post-its things we were nervous about being vulnerable about in our leadership practice. I found that I was afraid of being myself for 2 reasons. One, because I was afraid that other people would see me as not strong enough to lead. The other reason I was scared to be myself is because I thought people would think I was too strong and intimidating. Now, ain't that an interesting combo? Giving me a lot to reflect on, let's say that. And the other thing I can say, while respecting our rules around privacy and confidentiality, is I am in a room with some of the most accomplished and impressive and just amazing library leaders in America, really in the world. And I'm starting to feel more comfortable putting myself in with that ranking. And yet they struggle with the same, issues of budget cuts and staff trauma and people not coming together and bureaucracies being bureaucratic. It really doesn't matter if you're librarianing at a tiny little public university or you're doing it at Harvard or Penn State or some massive institution. The challenges are same, and I think the answers are the same as well, which is giving yourself grace and giving yourself kindness and giving your team that same grace and kindness and figuring out how to grow humanely, manage effectively, and partner collaboratively to get all that done. And for some reason, I just thought I needed to come out to the statue of Abe Lincoln, who, as I know a lot of us know, faced his own internal demons and his own feelings of inadequacy and uncertainty. And somehow in the middle of all that, changed our country, not perfectly, but more perfect, I think we can all say. So I got to get back to it. Stay kind now.
One of the things that doesn't get captured in my musings from that week at Harvard is the importance of the connections I made with my fellow library leaders. The safe space of the Institute allowed all of us to be much more honest and vulnerable about our leadership challenges. And those authentic connections made for some fun times as well. One night, I slurped oysters on the half shell with another member of my small discussion group. And another evening, a bunch of us went to see the Red Sox. but I also connected with myself and with my own leadership goals. Being an introvert at heart, there was one evening where I had to honor my own need for rest and reflection. I skipped my audio journal, stayed in, got dinner delivered, and watched mindless YouTubes all evening while knitting a sock. It was exactly what I needed, and I was back at Harvard the next day raring to go, as you can hear in this diary entry where I talk more about the importance of connections.
Greetings, kind leaders. Sarah again. I'm reporting from the courtyard, quad, open space, whatever, of the Harvard Radcliffe Institute. Been thinking a lot today about connections and conversations because they've been coming up a lot in our discussions and in our sessions. This morning, you are only as effective as a leader as the connections you make. A lot of that stuff is having conversation. It's making friends. It's finding out what you have in common, how you can support each other, and building those relationships before you need them, before you have to have them. But also, I think we all always need them, even if there isn't some specific ask you need to make some stakeholder. We all need to feel connected to our organization. We all need to feel connected to a bigger mission that our school or library supports. And I think step one of that is having more conversations. And that's what I've been learning. And that's what I'm going to make a resolution of myself to work on when I'm from Harvard. So that may seem a little mundane of a realization to have to go off to a Ivy League college for a week to have, but there you have it. I get the sunlight a little bit more before I have to go back in to our next session, or I should get to go into our next session. This has been an amazing experience. If you can go, if your organization has the resources and you are in the academic library space, you've got to put this on your bucket list. I've been wanting to go for years, and so far it has met, if not exceeded, all of my expectations I've had since I first heard about it, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago. That's all I have to say, so stay kind now.
At the end of the week, I found myself reflecting on everything I'd experienced and how I wanted to incorporate it into my leadership practice and my leadership teaching moving forward. I opened up my LinkedIn app and kind of just started typing. Here's what came out, more or less as written. What an amazing week at Harvard Graduate School of Education's Leadership Institute for Academic Librarians. It was inspiring both for improvements I can make in my own leadership practice and for showing me what could be possible as the Kind Leadership Guild and its projects grow. My 15-year journey to build my resume and successfully lobby an institution for funds to be able to attend makes me very aware of the privilege that got me to Lyle in several senses of the word privilege. And as I sat in many of our sessions, I had the same thought over and over. Every educational leader in the world should be able to access an experience like this. If nothing else, my goal for the Kind Leadership Guild is clearer than ever. I will teach higher ed and library leaders how to make the decisions that will make the impact we wish to see in our organizations and communities. And I will continue to create resources and programs that make sense for every budget and every schedule, from the Kind Leadership Challenge podcast to the forthcoming Kind Leadership Academy. I hope you join me on the journey. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to this special expanded episode of the Kind Leadership Challenge. And I hope you're inspired to incorporate some of my lessons from Harvard into your own leadership practice. Also, I want to let you know that on September 5th, I'll be awarding a copy of Joan Gallos's and Lee Bowman's Reframing Academic Leadership to a random member of my email list, which you can join by downloading the Mastering Challenging Conversations guide at kindleadershipchallenge.com/conversations. Thanks for listening and for taking action to become a kinder leader. If you found this week's episode insightful, give the show a rating or review. Or even better, Tell your fellow leaders. Never doubt that day by day you're building a better world, even if you can't see it yet. So until next time, stay kind now. Oh, one last thing. If you're ready to take on this week's challenge but not sure how to start, head over to kindleadershipchallenge.com/next to download the Next Steps checklist.